Hi everyone. The topic I've chosen for my dissertation is effective requirement gathering techniques to map customer needs to ERP system for manufacturing sector. Before we move on to the actual topic, let me give you a background of the ERP software and the requirement gathering techniques. ERP is nothing but enterprise resource planning. It's a business management software, usually a suite of integrated applications that a company can use to collect, store, manage, and interpret data for many business activities. ERP system was originally being developed to meet the unique requirements of manufacturing organizations. The cost of implementing ERP in manufacturing sector is high, mainly due to the lack of inefficient requirement gathering and mapping. Requirements gap leads to rework. The development becomes spiral and the cost of development goes high. This is a basic process for developing any ERP software. It starts with the requirement gathering phase, moves to design, then implementation and deployment. We can see that 80% of the errors are introduced at the requirement gathering phase, which means that um, the requirement gathering phase is not being done properly by the companies implementing the software. As the errors are introduced later on in the cycle, the cost of correcting those errors through poor requirement definition goes high. Therefore, it is essential that the initial phase is being done properly. This is my research question. Which requirement gathering methods are used by ERP developers to efficiently map customers' needs for manufacturing sector? Let me explain you the research question and the need of it. Basically, the studies indicate that over the life of a project, 50% or more of the requirements will change before the system is put into production. We can see that uh, in the graph that the reasons behind the overages is the reason is the initial project scope was expanded. This means that the initial requirement gathering and the mapping technique is being not done properly. Therefore, this question will analyze the various requirement gathering techniques used by the companies and their effectiveness. Based on the research, recommendations will be made to use a particular technique. Now, let us look at the literature. I've divided the literature into two themes. The first theme is ERP in manufacturing sector. ERP software was originally being developed to meet the unique requirements of manufacturing organizations. Manufacturing organizations basically have certain requirements which are very unique, and ERP systems uh, are used to fulfill those requirements. Significant components of ERP include human resources, finance, logistics, productions, fill orders, and supply chain management, which appeals to the manufacturing firms. 53% of the large firms and 9% of small to medium firms have installed an ERP package. Therefore, we can see the importance of ERP system in the manufacturing sector. The second theme is ERP requirement gathering and how requirement gathering is done in implementing the ERP software. User information requirements drive the entire effort of building an ERP system. Quality of ERP software demands quality control since the very beginning of the development process, that is, the requirement capture and writing. Small to medium sized enterprises lack the ability to pay the consultants big amounts to analyze the requirements and do the requirement mapping. Requirement definition and requirement classification using various techniques like focus groups, interviews, functional decomposition, etc. Therefore, this gives us a clear picture that requirement gatherings importance in ERP and the various techniques being used for requirement gathering and mapping. Now, let me tell you about the relevance of the topic in the literature. This research will assess the different requirement gathering frameworks used by the ERP developers to gather user requirements. This will research the issues and the problems that hinder the ERP requirements collections and definition processes. Analyzing business ERP business-driven ERP requirements that minimize the probability of the project failure of manufacturing sector. This research will there is currently a lack of research on ERP requirement gathering for manufacturing sector in particular in existing research. So my this research will aim to provide uh, an ERP gathering framework for existing literature. The methodology used for this research purpose is, I'll start with the desk research. This will include going through different journal articles, periodicals, and books to gather the theoretical information required for analysis. Later on, I will move on to the in-depth interviews. This will involve face-to-face interviews, audio conferencing, etc., to gather the information required for the research. After the information has been gathered and the literature we have in place, we'll be doing a data analysis based on the data obtained. After the data analysis, we will report our findings and structure the report. Once the report has been drafted, it will be given to the thesis in charge for consultation and review. This research onion shows the different methods which are being used in this research. Research philosophy. The research will use two philosophies as it is a business research. The first philosophy which I will be using is interpretivism. The reason for choosing this philosophy is that the data gathered is qualitative. And the second reason is the interviewees are the subject matter experts and ERP developers, so they may have different views. They may have a positive or negative view about a requirement gathering technique being used. So this will give me a generalized data. The second technique which I'll be using is the functionalist technique. This is because the research topic aims at solving the problem of requirement mapping. The interviews conducted with the SMEs and ERP developers aims to obtain rational data. Research approach. So for this research, I'll be using an inductive approach, mainly due to the high dependency on the qualitative data collected, and only when the data is gathered it can be analyzed and validated against the theories, as currently there is no existing literature present for this particular topic. Interviews will be conducted with ERP developers and the SMEs facing the issue of requirement mapping. Questions like which requirement mapping techniques are used by them, rate its effectiveness, etc., will be asked to these SMEs and ERP developers. After the data has been gathered, critical analysis of the data will be done. Check the relevance of the information obtained after the analysis of the data with the literature. Once we compare the information with the literature, a result will be elaborated and refined with the help of the existing literature. Research strategy. So the research strategy which I'll be using is a grounded theory. Here we will first carry out a qualitative research in the form of personal interviews with the ERP developers to obtain the information about the existing practices which are being followed. Secondly, we would be researching the wide range of books, periodicals, and journal articles to analyze the existing requirement gathering models from the literature. Uh, we will be conducting interviews with the manufacturing sector SMEs to gain the information of the various business needs in the manufacturing sector. This is essential to understand the exact requirements of the manufacturing sector for ERP softwares. And lastly, we will be analyzing the result and suggesting a recommendation based on our research and the ratings given by the uh, interviewees to use a particular framework. Research choice. So the choice of research I've used is a multi-method qualitative study. I, this is mainly due to the qualitative nature of the research, and the qualitative data will be collected using in-depth interviews and audio conferences. The data collected will be then analyzed using non-numerical, that is the qualitative procedures, sampling. So the target population for this research is very narrow, as I have to interview the people using ERP software for manufacturing sectors. This will include two type of target populations. First one is the ERP developers for manufacturing sector. The second is the subject matter experts for manufacturing sector business processes, who would know the various business processes involved in the manufacturing sector. The probability sampling will be used to get a generalized opinion about the ERP requirement gathering techniques used. Further, in addition to the probability sampling, we will be using a stratified sampling technique for data collection, as we are identifying the two groups of people to obtain the information about the ERP requirement gathering and the manufacturing sector business needs. So a sample size of 10 people per group is being decided. Data collection. So there are two type of data collection which will be used: the primary and the secondary data. For the primary data, we will be interviewing 10 ERP software developers. We will be interviewing 10 manufacturing companies consultants. The interviews will be a combination of face-to-face and audio conferencing. The results will be recorded as interview notes. The secondary data which we'll be obtaining is using like 6 to 7 existing journals to gather information about the current problems being faced in requirement mapping. Then 3 to 4 textbooks will be used to understand and analyze the different requirement gathering techniques. After the data has been gathered, we'll be analyzing the data. This data analysis will be conducted using a DDA approach, that is, the data display and analysis. First, in this approach, the first step would be data reduction. The data gathered from the interviews will be condensed, and important points like the choice of the requirement frameworks and ratings will be noted. After each interview, the data will be transcribed to avoid any loss of information. Once the data is being reduced and defined, we will be using a data display technique. In data display, the condensed data will be represented as uh, matrix, as it involves ratings and usage statistics. The data will be categorized into two main sections, that is, the requirement techniques and the effectiveness of the techniques. Finally, we will draw and verify the conclusion. Based on the categorized data, analysis will be conducted by analyzing the data, comparing the results with the theories, and providing with a final recommendation. So, to plan the project efficiently, I've divided the thesis into 10 different steps. Uh, these different steps are being planned across 12 weeks, uh, with the time assigned for each task accordingly. For example, sampling and data collection has been allotted a longer period, as this will require a lot of time in conducting the interviews and getting in touch with the people, the concerned people. Research ethics. So, for this research, an ethical approach would be followed. A letter from the college for conducting interviews will be handed over to the research participants beforehand. Interviews will be conducted in a professional manner and will respect the privacy of the interviewees. The data provided by the interviewees will not be used for any other purpose. Research participants will be informed about the research and will not be deceived by the information. The referencing will be done as prescribed by the college. Here are a few limitations of my research. The first limitation is the limited number of interviews. As I mentioned earlier, um, there are not a lot of people using ERP and have the knowledge of uh, requirement gathering in implementing ERP software. Uh, the second limitation is limited number of statistics available, uh, as the existing research isn't present about, so it will be a little difficult to get the statistics. The third limitation would be the research is relies on the qualitative data. Thank you so much. Please leave your comments below.